too that not all of them count towards the 2004.
Yeah,
So.
and that is one of the bills we addressed.
So one of the bills, I'll just kind of go through those, that were in the budget. These are either included in the budget or they are also separate bills. And then they're also in one large omnibus bill. So they're being proposed in multiple different forms. Like I said, lots of spaghetti being thrown at the wall. So there is, House Bill 129 that was, passed in the budget and vetoed. And that, makes all the levies count towards the 20 mil floor. So that way, that will take some schools off the 20 mil floor and it will decrease some revenue and save on property taxes, but not in a massive way. But all these things together will make meaningful reform for especially people who are retired and on fixed income.
So good for a homeowner, but not the school.
100%.
And that was vetoed?
That was, yeah. But with that said, all of these provisions, nothing would cause a revenue loss for schools. It wouldn't be taking anything away. It'd be future growth that it would control. So not as terrible. The Budget Commission overhaul and full tax rate authority was in the budget passed and vetoed. And that just gives local budget commissions, treasurer, auditor, prosecutor, more control over the tax rate. They can lower it. They have some say in the market values of the homes. And they're also just able to look at people's budgets and cash carryovers and be able to make determinations locally for what's better for the locals.
So if a levy were to be passed for the libraries, the auditors could say.
Auditor, treasurer,
Could say,
prosecutor
no,
together.
you're not gonna get that money?
Technically, they could, but I
Is
don't
that a
think
good
that's the
idea?
intent. It's not the intent.
Okay, so it should.
I don't think that
should be
those-
written in there, so they can't decide what we vote on. If we voted to give the library a mill, the library should get a mill. It shouldn't be up to an auditor.
The Budget Commission language essentially took into account what the carryover was for that entity and what they were going to get for
Again,
whatever
though,
year.
they're deciding to stopgap the voters. They can, if they want to. They said, yeah, you don't need $20,000 carryover.
Sure.
We're not gonna give you your 1 mil.
Yeah, I see your argument. I think it's highly unlikely that they would just cancel out an entire mill.
Yeah. Well, not the entire mill, maybe 2/3 of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, that's what the Budget Commission was created for, was to watch the taxpayer dollar and how it was being spent with different political subdivisions. So the Budget Commission, I don't know exactly how long it's been around for, but it's been around for quite a while with those three, and those three are elected officials as well, so like the prosecutor and the treasurer. So, they're tasked with making sure that the political entities are using the taxpayer dollars in the best way they can. So, I understand your point. I think it's appropriate to have some checks and balances when it comes to taxpayer dollars, and that they're not being used unwisely or inappropriately.
We already do have that. Checks and balances on how we use our money.
And that one didn't pass anyway, did it?
No, it was
It was
vetoed.
vetoed, yeah.
The auditors look at the budgets all the time,
They do, but
every year.
they don't have any authority to withhold funds on their own, so.
No, and I would suggest they shouldn't.
Yeah, we can.
I'm sorry, didn't you say that the auditor, treasurer, and prosecutor had to agree?
Yes.
Okay,
It has
so
to be a vote.
there's not just one anyway, so all three have to agree that there's a
still.
change. But that was vetoed, so it's non-existent.
Right.
It
We're
may-
hoping.
Yeah, it may be overridden though.
Okay,
I mean, I'm not saying it is, we have no idea because we're
Right.
not in session right now, so, I mean, it's a possibility.
so it can't be overwritten at this point. Now, will it be or could it be overridden before the end of this
Yeah,
session?
Yes.
you can override vetoes until the General Assembly concludes
Okay,
for that 2-year period,
okay, thank you.
so.
Yeah, and that kind of came about, because the big windfalls that everyone got, in January that they did not budget for. $34 million to 21 county school districts in total. No one budgeted for that money, and they did not have to take it, by the way, but everyone did. There was only 1 or 2 counties that did not take the money. So, when everyone said they wanted relief or money back, we can't give it if we don't have it.
Right.
And everyone else took it, so they would have to give it back. So they already had that authority to not take the money. That budget commission language was to put that in black and white, so that they knew, because they said they did not know, is what we were told.
There were some, like the Erie County prosecutors said that you have that discretion as a budget commission, but there were some other prosecutors, Iowa County was another prosecutor who said, I think the law is too ambiguous for me to give that advice. So while Erie County was okay with the oversight, another county was not. So this language clarified what the intent was with that language.
So one that was passed, that was included in the budget, and not vetoed, was the local homestead piggyback. So that is a permissive county opt-in, to double the state homestead. So it gives the local county commissioners the ability to double that exemption, so it'd be double 28,000, so 56,000. So for those who qualify. But it is paid for by the local government. So the state already gives $2 billion, that would just give them the ability to match. So that did pass, so you can apply for that, so everyone knows.
Did the occupancy permit? The 2.5%.
That is as well, and then 2.5%, they can also double your 2.5% occupancy, tax credit as
So
well.
5%.
What was the
What was the income limit on the Homestead Act?
Yeah.
The income limit is adjusted to inflation is 40,000.
The occupancy credit is.
I know. It's not that much, yeah, it's.
The occupancy credits for everybody, so you can get up to 5%
Yeah.
occupancy credit now, it was 2.5% previously.
And you will, I believe you'll have to apply for that, so, I don't think you're gonna probably advertise it very well, so. A additional, provision, and that did pass before I go to the more controversial one, is, limiting the type. The Board of Revision provision passed, and that addresses, it just reforms the school's ability to, challenge property tax values essentially. So it wasn't really super controversial, honestly, on that passed. And then one that was passed but vetoed was just levy transparency. So we eliminated all types of levies because no one knows what they're voting on. Emergency substitute, replacement, renewals, and increase. They're very confusing. So it's just a levy, now it's just a general levy, so that everyone knows, and the information is there on if your tax bill is gonna go up or not.
But that was vetoed.
That was vetoed, but the House overrode that veto. So the Senate claims that they're going to override it, that remains to be seen because we're not in session currently. So probably early fall if they do,
So the governor vetoes it?
yes.
So he wants to keep it confusing.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be making presumptions, but, he just.
When the state doesn't, get any of this money, why is the governor vetoing all of this?
That's true.
So the governor.
He shouldn't even have a say in it.
The governor proposed that we go and do another property tax study led by 2 gentlemen, Pat Teaberry and Bill Seitz, they're both former legislators. But we already did a property tax study for the last, I think, year in the legislature, so, no disrespect, but our comment was, we studied enough. Now's the time for doing it. We don't need to be studying, the test is here.
Here we go.
So let's get an A. So, thanks.
So the 2 most controversial provisions, one was passed in the budget and vetoed, the other one was not included in the budget, it's still just a bill being contemplated. The first that was passed but vetoed is, it caps the cash carryover, the general fund cash carryover for schools. And you have a variety of amounts of cash carryovers, but all in all, the 611 school districts right now are carrying over $10.5 billion. So, we can argue about that or not, whether they should or shouldn't, it should be in their bank, in your bank. Regardless, we decided to cap it at 40%. Some had over 100%. Some had 86, some had 18. So we capped it at 40. He vetoed that. So that was pretty controversial, and so I don't know if we'll have the votes to override that. kind of my point there. And then the most controversial, which is a separate bill, is removal of inside millage altogether. So it's Constitution caps at 10 mils. This bill proposes to cap it at 0, and then the locals would have 100% control over their millage. You can still put a property tax levy on, it's just not inside millage as unvoted. So it would all be levy, it would all be voted on. And that has created quite a controversy. That would save total of $3.5 billion. Probably, I think it was 800, around average of $800 of a decrease in property tax bills, kind of across the board, if you remove inside millage. So obviously the problem is replacing that revenue. That goes to pay for local services. Part of that millage is schools outside of the state share and outside of levies that have been voted on for schools. So that is a valid concern, is replacing that revenue. You can replace it, the thought process behind it is not just a hatchet, the thought process is diversify the tax base, so that's not all on the property owner. So a 0.5% sales tax would cover all of Huron County's loss if we removed inside millage. The schools can do an income tax, so that way if you have some working people tax, some property tax, homeowners property tax, and then some, everybody paying sales tax. So that was the thought behind that. We can talk about how controversial it was, but, that was the intent behind that. Though it's not our bill, but I'm just telling you the intent behind the sponsored bill.
Another item in the budget was that the schools cannot go for a property tax levy increase with 100% carryover on their books. That was another
That makes
proposal
sense.
that was in the budget. If you have, millions of dollars in the bank, and that money's there and you're covered, your teachers are being paid, your facilities are in check, and you have this money, it doesn't make much sense to go back to the voters to ask for more.
Does that take into account building funds?
I don't think
Is
it
it just
does.
a general?
It's just a
And you have to be very careful with, admittedly, and these were discussions we had amongst ourselves in the legislature too, you have to be careful with these carryover debates, because there are some schools that have done it responsibly, and they have a carryover balance because they are being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and you wanna make sure that if you're gonna be looking at carryovers when you address these issues, you wanna do so in a way that doesn't incentivize, bad spending and bad habits at the same time.
So what's the status of that carryover right now?
It's vetoed and unlikely to have the votes to override because of what you just said, essentially. It is somewhat penalizing folks who are fiscally conservative with their money. But then you have other people who have the 100% cash carryover, putting levies on and, investing that money instead of you investing it. There's an argument for that too.
One of the things that I would add into, as a homework assignment for all of you, is to watch how your local government entities are spending your dollars. And not in an adversarial way, but just to be cognizant of that, is your library spending money appropriately? How's your school board doing with spending your money? Are they looking out for the best interests of the kids and doing it the right way? Is your township or village being cognizant of the funds they have on hand and spending your tax dollars prudently? And those are all very fair conversations that you should have, and I understand you're all very, very busy, you have lives and kids and grandkids, we have the world's best grandma right here. But it's really, it is very important that you look at that stuff in your local, political subdivision, wherever that may be, because, it's kind of your job to hold whoever is elected to take care of that money accountable to how that's being spent, to how it's being used, the resources that they're using, and, if someone does go for a levy in your city, village, or township, or wherever, make sure that that's something that's actually really needed. And be sure to ask the questions like, how are you justifying this? How is it going to be spent? Why do we need to do this? And, to be cognizant that it's up to all of you as well to help us hold elected responsible for what they're doing with your dollars. That's the other thing we're always trying to remember, is this money just didn't like appear out of thin air, it's your money. Like, you either paid it through sales taxes, income taxes, property taxes, or some sort of commercial activities tax. And like, it's your dollars, this is not the federal government, like, we're not printing money in Columbus. So when we go and craft a budget, it needs to be done responsibly and with you, in mind, so.
So everybody should get involved in their local
100%.
government, 100%.
Yeah. 100%.
Especially as it relates to property taxes, because that's, we can't, it's very difficult for us to reform it,
Yeah.
because it's being.
Well, we have to speak up.
Yeah.
We have to know.
Yeah, and I'm not saying go antagonize your township trustee, but it's also fair to say, hey, like, what's this property levy, property tax levy, or like, how much money do you have on hand in your budget, you know, and a lot of those guys do a great job. You know,
Yeah, right.
I'm not criticizing, but it is important to have oversight from the people who live in the community and asking those important questions as you move forward, so. I think, you run the risk, just in general, of being used to saying, yeah, I'm gonna approve whatever they ask of me, and sometimes it's like, I don't know that we need that.
We gotta learn.
Yeah.
I think we all learned in January, didn't we?
And I think too, the beauty of that is that all of our school board meetings, all of our trustee meetings, city council, they're all open.
Right.
Now, if you wanna speak, you need to make prior arrangements, but it's up to us. I mean, a lot of things are happening now, no offense, but on the federal level, I'm going, oh my goodness, we're getting set back, or we're getting,
Well, as
I don't
we-
wanna start a controversy, but we need to speak up, just like you said.
Right, and
Yes.
once you're on a fixed income, with
Well,
every dollar.
And everybody is in some way or another.
Right.
Everyone is in one way or another. We all make choices on how to spend and how to save and so forth.
A good example is
Yes,
like,
we all have a budget.
in the last, you know, we've had the inflation we've had. And because of that, the unvoted millage increases on the inside millage and the outside millage, you know, the last couple of years has been unbelievable. And I think it's fair, you know, Rep. Dieter mentioned this earlier, to ask whoever's in charge of that unvoted increase to say, well, what are you gonna do with all of that money? You know, that's a very fair question to ask, and, you know, at least some of these individuals decided not to take that unvoted increase. You know, that was something that they decided to do and said, we're good. We understand that people have been through inflation here in the last couple of years, and we're getting this money in an unvoted way, so we're gonna send it back. And that did happen, and that's, you know, something that's good. And one of the other provisions, I can't remember if we mentioned it yet, but, going forward, I think this also got vetoed. If you were gonna take an unvoted increase, the, elected officials in charge of that entity who would be receiving it had to actually sign off on that.
A public resolution,
Yeah.
it was in the budget commission.
Yeah. So I really like that provision because that's transparency. Like, that's what it's really about at the local government level. And yeah, if you're gonna take that extra millage increase on the 20 mills or the 10 mills, then you should own that. You know, it shouldn't just be, you know, hide the ball and be like, oh, well, we got a little extra money this year, and, you know, that's how the law says. It's like, no, we're gonna vote whether or not we're gonna accept those extra dollars and how we're gonna use them. So I was especially disappointed to see that provision, get vetoed.
I got three more for you, that just got introduced, they don't even have a number yet. One discontinues continuous levies, so all continuous levies, they just go, I believe, in for perpetuity, right? They would have to end by 2030, and then just reintroduced as a general levy, and, you know, be revoted on, whenever that levy ends. And then this one tries to go at inside millage again in a different way. It creates a referendum process to reduce the inside millage for local jurisdictions. So when taxpayers believe that the inside millage or property tax is excessive, it grants them the right to gather signatures, 15% of the number of voters in the most recent election, and place a referendum on the ballot to reduce or eliminate the specified amount, whatever is on the ballot that they collect signatures for. And then the last one raises the threshold on new levies, so raise threshold of voters. So if you ask for 1 to 1.9 mils, or actually, any one mil would require simple majority, 1 to 1.9 mils would require 60% majority to pass, and then 2 mils or over would require 66%.
So these are all pending, yeah?
they just got introduced, they don't even have a number, a bill number yet.
Why would they do that?
It's all the same
Scare us.
bill author, happy to share his name with you if you wanna. More spaghetti.
Those three are the
Probably
things
in a as a reaction to
Mm,
the veto.
I would
Yes.
say, and I would say this too, you know, I've been in the legislature for 6 years, like, it's the arena of ideas. You know, people propose things to get the conversation going, you know, like Rep. Dieter mentioned, there's 33?
I think 23 is what I got.
23 property tax bills. Not all of them will pass, but because 23 property tax bills exist, there's gonna be a conversation
It's gotta be
about
a
property
record.
taxes.
Gotta be right.
You think it's a
Oh,
record?
oh, gotcha.
You know, so that's,
Everybody wants to be the one to fix it too, so.
the legislature's a group project.